I spent 100% of the 2000s decade as a child, like pre-high school, and I didn't really listen to popular music. However, there were a few songs big enough for me to hear at the time of its release. Even so, much of the music that I love from the decade was stuff that I found later. So many songs from the 2000s hold a special place in my heart, and that includes much of the music that got popular. Just like last time, the top 10 biggest hits from each year were considered, giving us 100 total. A top 10, 10 honorable mentions. Let's go. One of the biggest hits of 2008 was Love Song by Sarah Bareilles, which sounds like a song about a relationship, but was really her telling the studio to get off her back. It was okay. It's certainly unique, and it has its own sort of charm, but if you're gonna write a song about writer's block, you should at least be more helpful. While apparently a metaphor for life itself, this song just as easily applies to the writing process. That guitar lick has become iconic since its release, and for good reason. It's a good riff. But to me, the best part of Unwritten is its pre-chorus, especially that last one. I don't really think the chorus meets that build-up though, which is why this isn't higher on the list. Personally, I prefer Bedingfield's other big hit, Pocketful of Sunshine, due to its performance and production, but I do think that her first hit was better written, aside from one line. That just sounds weird to me, like, it almost sounds angry at the window. Joking aside, Unwritten is a good anthem about individuality. I like how it brings up that making mistakes is an expected part of the process. Bedingfield does a good job too, but I don't think it's her best. I like her more when she's belting, but you do get hints of that in the pre-chorus. But even more restrained, she still is a very good, distinctive singer. The production is very calculated and precise, which I like. I appreciate the little touches, like the subtle maraca-type percussion or those shooting star sounds. I also think it was a good move to not have the guitar play during the chorus. It clearly had effort put into everything, including the pacing. That pre-chorus does well to convey the slow build to inspiration. If they had a chorus that was more worthy of a payoff, this would have been spectacular. But even as is, it's a great pop song. Smooth is not going to be on this list, nor will it be in the honorable mentions. I know that it's the ultimate millennial sacred cow, but I just didn't care for it. There were a few reasons for that, but I think the main one was the vocalist, whose voice I just didn't think worked very well for this song. The singer was Rob Thomas from Matchbox 20, a band that had a few hits in the early 2000s. I didn't really like most of them either, but one of them stood out.
And I don't know why, but I'm not crazy, I'm just a little unwell. I know right now you can't tell.
The early 2000s had a substantial number of country and country-influenced songs becoming monster hits, this being the best among them. I'll be blunt with you. I've heard Smooth multiple times and I can't tell you how it goes. I listened to Unwell once and it was stuck in my head for hours. But besides being catchy, it's also remarkably heartfelt. The song puts its narrator in a very vulnerable place, talking to somebody who he wants to get close to. It puts forward two things that make it so much more real to me in that chorus. The first is that he is constantly trying to hide his demons and only wants to show his problems to people who he cares about. Expanding on that, he also says that he doesn't think people care about his problems, like him talking about them is just an inconvenience, but he hopes to find somebody who wants to know and wants to help him. These things make it clear not only that the songwriting is sincere, but also that it's not just a pity party, it's a push to move forward. I enjoy the production quite a bit. That banjo is a really nice touch. This is also a song much more suited to Rob Thomas's voice than Smooth was. Rob Thomas, the smooth, confident lover, isn't that realistic to me. Rob Thomas, the insecure, weird guy, I buy completely. Honestly, we take pop hits like this for granted nowadays. For years, songs about depression and anxiety have been common, but back then, songs like Unwell weren't a normal thing. I appreciate it quite a bit. But even in a vacuum, Unwell is awesome. American Idol doesn't matter in the slightest anymore when it comes to what acts get popular. But at its beginning, the winners would go on to have chart success like clockwork. Of course, even then, most of them were mostly just a flash in the pan, disappearing off the pop charts after about a year. Only one has managed to have long-lasting success on the Hot 100, and while she has fallen off recently, it should be reiterated that she was on top of the world for a time.
Here I am, once again. I'm torn into pieces, can't deny it, can't pretend.
2005 was to Kelly Clarkson what 2011 would later be for Adele. She already had her breakthrough smash hit, a triumphant, confident banger that briefly ruled the world, but her next single was sadder and more personal and ultimately better. Kelly Clarkson isn't a songwriter the way someone like Taylor Swift or Adele is. In fact, some of her highest charting and most well-known music was written by other people. But Clarkson did have a hand in writing Behind These Hazel Eyes, and I think that does come through in the final product. It's more uniquely hers than songs like Since You've Been Gone or My Life Would Suck Without You. She's described Behind These Hazel Eyes as being from the point of view of a person like the one that got dumped in Since You've Been Gone, and that makes a lot of sense. It's about the pain of being torn apart by a breakup while the other person has moved on and is clearly happier. That sucks, and in my opinion is a much more interesting position to write a pop song from. But the crux of the narrative is how the narrator holds it all in and keeps the feelings inside. That rock sound works with the hurt and anger wonderfully. This is the most genuine emotion I've ever gotten from a Kelly Clarkson song, and bar none the best vocal performance of her career. She never even came close to matching it. It's not her best song, Breakaway has better lyrics and Already Gone has better production, but you could make the argument that Breakaway is more of an Avril Lavigne song and Already Gone is more of a Ryan Tedder song. Behind These Hazel Eyes is the most Kelly Clarkson song Kelly Clarkson ever made. I think we can all agree that she ultimately failed in her quest to recapture the lightning in a bottle that was her second album. But we'll still always have songs like this to remember it by. I just don't like Beyonce. Sure, she's made a few songs I like, but she's definitely made more songs that I hate. But I think even more than that, I just don't like her fans. Beyonce can do nothing wrong in their eyes, and nobody can have any legitimate criticism of her. To her credit, that doesn't really appear to have gone to her head, but even so, there's still an aloof, greater-than-thou element to a lot of her music. I just don't think I'll ever be a Beyonce fan. But even with all that, when she gets it right, she gets it right.
To the left, to the left. To the left, to the left.
I used to be sort of indifferent to this song. I just thought it was too easy. Yeah, she's mad at this guy, and for good reason, but there was no indication that there was any heartbreak or difficulty on her part. But after listening to it over and over again, and especially after listening to the version in the music video, I noticed a few things. The first thing is that she definitely sounds weaker in the first chorus than she does in the second.
I could have another you in a minute. Matter of fact, he'll be here in a minute. I could have another you in a minute. Matter of fact, he'll be here in a minute.
You could interpret that as normal pacing, but you could also see that as her getting more confident as the song continues. But what really pushed things over the edge was this moment in the video. Those horns convey more than any subtle vocal changes ever could. Irreplaceable may have started out angry, but at the end she's happy. There's an element of catharsis and fun in this song that I didn't notice at first. Honestly, the fact that those additional instruments aren't on the album version, aka the one on Spotify, is a huge disservice. They add so much, and Beyonce herself probably knows this because those horns are there when she performs Irreplaceable live. But even with the album version, the production in this song is excellent. The guitars and strings give it a rich sound, and the percussion is great, using hi-hats correctly for a change. And I won't deny that Beyonce is an excellent vocalist, and her singing is great here. If Single Ladies is the example of all the things I dislike about Beyonce, Irreplaceable is the song that plays to all of her strengths. I don't think it's her best song, that would be Halo. Hey, Ryan Tedder knew he had something special. Why else would he make the same song 3 times? But as great as Halo is, it was Irreplaceable that actually made me look at Beyonce in a different way. I'm still not a fan and probably won't ever be, but I definitely respect her. And when things in Beyonce songs work, they work wonders. I realized the other day that if you took somebody who didn't know anything about 80s music, it wouldn't take that much convincing to have them believe that Never Gonna Give You Up was never actually a hit song and was made in like 2000 as a joke. That's what memes do. They turn serious works into novelties, things seen as not meant to be taken seriously. Obviously, that isn't always the case. Never Gonna Give You Up was always sort of dumb, but sometimes it takes listening to a track with fresh ears to realize it's so much better than you ever gave it credit for.
Making my way downtown, walking fast, faces pass and I'm homebound.
I haven't seen White Chicks and have literally no desire to, but it's because of that movie that 1,000 Miles became a song often used in a comedic manner, and that was further exacerbated by Just Girly Things posts often using it as music. That piano has become synonymous with white girl stereotypes, and that's not fair because 1,000 Miles has always been a damn good pop song. First of all, that piano lick is iconic for a reason. It's the crux of the entire track and holds up everything. There's also those strings in the pre-chorus, but in my opinion, the best instrument in the entire song is the electric guitar. It's subtle, which is not usually something that instrument is good for, but it adds this weight and edge to the sound without taking over. The vocals aren't exactly technically impressive, but Carlton's poise and restraint on this track is a nice touch. Then we get to the lyrics. This is a pretty cheesy song, using many cliches we've heard in so many other things, but as you'll learn quickly as we continue on this list, cheese is not an issue for me. In fact, it can be awesome if it has enough supporting it. And this has enough conviction to pull off a line like, "I'd walk 1,000 miles just to see you." I like this song quite a bit. It's one of the best examples out there of more thoughtful, smarter female pop music from the early 2000s. We almost exclusively know it nowadays from the multiple memes, but at the time of its release, it didn't need them. 1,000 Miles was a gem back then and still is now. Nu metal and rap rock had its peak in the early 2000s, but died off pretty quickly. Obviously, various types of alternative rock and emo rock stuck around for much longer, but anything that could ever be defined as metal was getting pretty rare. In fact, after 2002, there was only one smash hit from that genre, but it was one hell of a note to go out on. Evanescence is a wonderful band, and I refuse to be swayed on that matter. I've loved this song since I first discovered it in like 2011. Like my other nu metal favorite, Numb by Linkin Park, it's been used in a bunch of memes, usually in the context of making fun of emos, but Bring Me to Life has always been untouchable to me. I love everything about it. Evanescence has always had two major defining points. The first one is that most of their songs are based on the piano rather than the guitar, and the piano is used much better here than it is in, say, In the End. The second calling card is Amy Lee, whose voice I absolutely love. She isn't exactly a spectacular singer, there are many in rock or metal way more impressive, but her singing has such a great tone to it. Instead of the rough, grungy style typically associated with nu metal, her singing is more clear, almost operatic. It just sounds majestic. But we can't forget about Paul McCoy, who is sometimes swept under the rug but really adds quite a bit to the track. He serves as a great contrast to Lee, and the two of them work together very well. My biggest problem with In the End was that it didn't really commit, but Bring Me to Life throws everything it has at you. I think that's what songs like this are supposed to feel like. There's an inherent cheesiness to it, often bordering on being silly, but in this song, Evanescence embraced that melodrama and made it work in their favor. Bring Me to Life is basically a hair metal ballad. It's so corny and over the top, but so sincere that you can't help but love it. I've loved this song for many years, and I know I'll love it for many more.